now. Okay, good morning and welcome to the State Ethics Commission. It is July 20th, 2022, and the time is now 0900. For you civilians, that means 9 o'clock. Before we begin, just a roll call. I wanted just administrative announcements. Number one is if you have a cell phone, please shut your cell phones off because we can still hear it. And the second thing is if you want to speak, please raise your hand so I can see you. Or you can say, Mr. Vice Chair, and then I'll recognize you. So not everybody will speak at once. At this time, we need a roll call. 1 second. We need a roll call. I note all of the commissioners and some of the staff are present. I'll have our executive director, Robert, call out your name, and if you will indicate if you're here, and if you are remote, let me rephrase that, you're online, please indicate if there's anybody with you. Robert?
Thank you, Chair. Noting that Commissioner Giralty is excused, Commissioner McCarthy.
I am here and there's no one else with me.
Commissioner Tobias.
I'm also here and there's no one with me.
Commissioner Hall.
I'm here and no one with me.
Thank you, Chair.
You have to indicate also about the staff, if there's anyone with them, or you want to go through them?
Maybe I can simply just note for the record that we have with us Susan Yoza, Key Campbell, Jennifer Yamanuha, Nancy Neufer, and Bonita. Bonita, I apologize, I'm blanking your last name suddenly.
Chang.
Thank you. that is a awkward and embarrassing moment.
That's okay. That's a common name, right?
Noting that all the staff are participating virtually, can anybody indicate if there's somebody with them? Otherwise, I'm going to assume that you are participating alone.
I'm alone.
Okay, all of you are alone, figuratively. Also, we note the presence of computer specialist Liu, and I know he's alone. Thank you. I note are there any members of the public? Okay, so we don't have to worry about the next admonition. At this time, under agenda number 1, we'd like to welcome on behalf of the commission and the staff, our newest member on the commission, Dr. Robert Hong. So Dr. Hong, welcome. And I guess we should give him a round of applause. Is that it? All right, there we go. Welcome. Now you're one of the big 5. Would you like to say a few words about yourself and any comments you may have?
Sure. Thank you for inviting me and to participate in this important commission. I'm a retired cardiologist. I just retired on July 1st, 2022. And I had been in practice for 35 years, specializing in heart electricity, electrophysiology. I've had a variety of things. I was basically born and raised in Hawaii, went to Kalani High School, went to Stanford for college, University of California, San Francisco for medical school, did my internal medicine residency in Beth Israel in Boston, and then my cardiology training at USC LA County 35 years ago exactly. I completed that, so it adds up. In my career, I've done a bunch of different things. I've basically been in clinical practice throughout my career, and then I was involved in medical staff administration, serving as the chief of staff or the president of the medical staff at the Queens Medical Center for 8 years, chief of cardiology at Queens for about the same time, a variety of different other positions at the Queens Medical Center. And I've been a professor of medicine at the Johnny Burns School of Medicine, involved in clinical faculty since the late 1980s. I spent the last part of my career focusing on medical education and created a training program for the only training program for cardiologists in Hawaii in 2010, and served as program director for the training officer for 9 years, and then went on to undergraduate medical education for the past 3 years. So I've done different things. I'm love surfing, and I grew up, surfing. So there'll be some things they'll share with other members, and play golf, weed. That's about it.
So, thank you very much, Dr. Hong. Just a couple of questions. What's your handicap?
19 and climbing. It was down to 12.
That's very good considering. Also, I noticed that you were awarded the what is that?
Now, I have a bunch
Peter
of
Char
awards.
Award? Yeah, what is that? Was Peter Char, if that's the
So
same Peter Char?
Peter Char is the same lawyer that did, medical malpractice defense. He's a wonderful guy, and but basically he created an award for the teaching of postgraduate medical. Once you get to medical school, you have to do your internship, residency, and your fellowship for subsequent training. And we had 11 programs at that time in training, postgraduate training. Peter created an award for outstanding program director. And so for 2 of my 9 years, I was given the Peter Char Award. I was given the Kaukapō Kela Award by Queens Medical Center, I think in 1990. But for outstanding physician medical center when I was a lot younger.
Congratulations. The reason I asked is because I don't think it's the same Peter Char that graduated with me from Punahou.
Yeah, it's probably the same Peter Char. He was a lawyer and
Yeah,
worked
yeah,
with-
that was my classmate.
worked
Very
with the former mayor.
I assume you're married and you have any kids?
I have married, 2 children. One is retired at 32, and the other
Wow.
is banana ice cream.
Retired at 32.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Any
No
comments?
questions, Wesley, but I know for the record that the legal profession still outnumbers the medical profession on the commission 3-2.
Harry, I was going to say that, but I wasn't going to mention it. I'm glad you said it. And the good thing about it is Dr. Hong is a cardiologist. Only problem is he's not here if I have a heart attack. So
Yeah.
good as well, right? Anyway, any other comments or any questions? If not, welcome aboard, Dr. Hong.
Thank
Moving
you.
right along, we have election of officers for chair and vice chair. Since there are no members from the public, I don't have to ask if there's anybody want to speak on this topic. So at this time, I'll open the nominations for chair. Nominations for the chair? Yes, Bev?
I'll go ahead and nominate Wesley for the chair, since he's already vice chair.
Any other nominations? If not, according to Robert's Rules of Parliamentary Procedure, the presiding officer can just declare the only nominee as the elected official. However, the Sunshine Law says that we have to have a roll call vote. So when Robert calls your name as a commissioner, you can either say Wesley Fong, Wes, or Fong. That'll make it official. Robert?
Commissioner McCarthy,
Yes, for Wesley Fong.
Commissioner Tobias,
Yes, for Fong.
Commissioner Hong,
And yes, for Wesley Fong.
Vice Chair Wesley Fong.
I better say yes, and thank you for the honor and pleasure. I'm impressed. I thank you for the confidence you're going to put in me for leading this august body. At this time, we have nominations for vice chair. Any nominations of vice chair?
I have a nomination. I nominate Ray Gralty for vice chair.
Are there any other nominations? Well, I want to ask for another roll call, but I'm not going to preface my asking for roll call that's if and assuming Ray will accept the position of vice chair. Okay, with that caveat, roll call.
Just briefly, I did email Commissioner Gralty. He indicated he'd be willing to serve, so
Oh.
that box has been checked.
Wait,
Commissioner,
I'm sorry, did you hear that? Robert called or talked to Ray Gralty, and he will accept the nomination. Okay, go ahead.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Yes, for Gralty for vice chair.
Commissioner Tobias,
Yes, for Gralty for vice chair.
Commissioner Hong,
Yes, for Gralty for vice chair. And I guess I'll be Rob now, so we don't get confused.
Chair Fong.
Ray Gralty. Congratulations, Ray. I'm glad you're back on board. I know you got about a year and a half, but we're going to make you work. So thank you. All right, moving right along. Item number 3 on the agenda, consideration and approval of minutes, June 16th, 2022. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Any additions? If not, I will entertain a motion that we approve the minutes of June 16th, 2022.
So moved.
Moved by Tobias. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by McCarthy. All in favor? Roll call vote again? We have to just show of hands.
Show of hands would be fine.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
I will abstain as I was not present.
Thank you. I'll note for the record Commissioner Hong is abstaining.
Okay, thank you. The next thing on the agenda is item number 4, and that's consideration of reasonable time limits on oral testimony. I'm going to read this before we discuss it. It says pursuant to Hawaii Administrative Rules, section 21-1-6, subsection C, the commission may place reasonable time limits for members of the public to present oral testimony in order to ensure the reasonable and orderly administration of the meeting. The intent of this agenda item is to consider time limits on oral testimony for the rest of the year. Just for your information, I've been on the board for 4 years now, I think. And we never had a time limit because we never had a problem with, how would you say, filibustering by any member of the public. But my question is, what's your pleasure, commissioners? Anybody want to have a time limit? Bev?
I think a time limit's important, and I think it needs to be announced, especially when we have members of the public, so that we don't have a kind of chaotic bursting forth of verbiage, if you will, because I don't say it was all relevant. But in any event, I think it's important because people need to understand that they cannot just keep, talking, and they can't talk over people, and they can't talk over the chair. So I think a time limit would be well advised at this point. Even if we never have a bunch of members of the public talk again, it's just a good rule to have.
Anybody else? Yes, Barry?
Yeah, I support Commissioner Tobias completely with respect to reasonable time limits. And I don't know whether or not at this point in time, we need to set a number as the time limit itself. I think it should be left at the discretion of the chair to evaluate that and to impose a reasonable limit. The other comment I would have is that any commentary by the public should relate to the agenda and not beyond or the agenda items.
Robert, do you have any comment or questions? Rob?
No comment. I think I'm new to this process, so I'd like to spend this time learning about things.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion that we set a reasonable time limit. I mean, reasonable, it's just sort of a guide. Because I don't like to leave it on the discretion of the chair because at least there's some type of guidance by the time limit, a reasonable time limit, we can be flexible about it. So if anybody would like to make a motion that we have the reasonable time limit of up to, and then leave it to the discretion of the chair, something to that effect, then it'll kind of give us the guidance.
Could I just ask for Mr. Harris's input on this time limit?
Robert?
So I think currently the way our administrative rules state it is that only the commission has the ability to set the reasonable time limits in the midst of an actual discussion where perhaps we're trying to end a meeting by a certain time before a commission member has to leave. It might be beneficial to try to set a time limit in advance rather than try to do it in that moment. So again, I think maybe going along with what the chair said, you could potentially set a time limit of somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes. Again, that is certainly a call for the commission to make, and then give the chair the discretion to extend as is appropriate, or something to that effect, I think. And then we can put that in the agendas going forward to give the public notice that that's sort of how it's going to be done moving forward.
Let me chime in. Just as for your information, I'm the chair of my neighborhood board for the last how many years. But in the beginning of every fiscal year, we do set time limits for presentations, 5 minutes, for reports by the government officials, 3 minutes, and for the residents, 1 minute, and that's kind of short. So just give you some guidance on that. I don't know what you think is reasonable, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute. I'm open to a motion. Yes, Bev?
I'd like to set the time limit to 3 minutes, because in 3 minutes, you can usually get your thought across. Any longer, and you tend to go into other things besides what's germane to the topic. So if we could just add that 3 minutes, and if we need more time, then we can certainly petition the chair for that.
Okay, so I'm going to understand that you would like to make a motion that we set a time limit and note the time limit on our agenda for up to 3 minutes, and at the discretion of the chair. I know I could go beyond that if we have to. Is
Right,
that your?
yes,
Like
that
to
is
make
my motion.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Before, could I interject one thing before considering a
Sure.
second for the motion? I know at the conclusion of the last meeting that Commissioner Gralty had some comments then about the issues that came before us then with respect to the extensive comments made by members of the public, which seemed to be excessive. I don't know if we wanted to, if Wesley, if you wanted to summarize it all, what Commissioner Gralty might offer with respect to this particular issue.
Yeah, well, I talked to Commissioner Gralty about this item on the agenda, and he says we shouldn't have a time limit. But that's his opinion. So I will leave it to the commissioners, what they feel that they like to do. You know, I'm the chair and I'll leave it up to you folks, what your druthers. If, as a chair, I like to have some guidance, at least I can say our rules say this, or the commission has set this time limit, but you may finish up, how about finishing up, or if you have to go on. So that way it's not gonna be arbitrary, as they say, as a chair. So there is a motion that we limit 3 minutes at the discretion of the chair.
I would second that motion.
Any discussion? No discussion, roll call vote?
Starting with Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Tobias,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Chair Hall,
Aye,
and noting Commissioner Gralty is excused.
okay. Any objections? Nays? And no abstentions? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. We will publish it. I'm gonna ask Robert to publish it in our agenda so that everybody knows when they read the agenda that there's a reasonable time limit of 3 minutes. And we can go from there. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Executive Director's Report, Robert?
Thank you, Chair. So everybody should have attachment number 1, which will indicate the total number of trainings. It also lists the future trainings that are currently scheduled and people are actively signing up for. Relatively speaking, in the month of June, the number of trainings has been relatively light. As you may be aware, and we'll talk about in a little bit, the governor signed the mandatory ethics training bill, which we have not heavily publicized yet. I think the intent is to potentially add in more trainings on our website and our schedule for people to sign up for before we heavily start pushing that to the different state agencies. We're just trying to make sure that we don't publicize and then you get overwhelmed or not have enough trainings available for people to sign up for. So we're trying to do that in a thoughtful fashion to make sure that we hopefully are able to meet demand. In addition, again, also the number of online trainings or self-directed trainings is relatively light for the month of June, with a total of 97 having gone through the self-directed training versus 442 in May. Again, the May was a spike based on some outreach that we had done, indicating that this bill may be signed. So we sort of hope once we've sort of listed more trainings and sort of walk through that process, we'll be able to really see these numbers increase sharply. With regards to moving to the next topic of guidance assignment statistics, if you take a look at online, it's page 21 of looking at the number of statistics. So we had 104 attorney of the day inquiries, and then we had a slightly lower number of new assignments, relatively speaking, of complaints, gifts, and Judicial Selection Commission inquiries of 27. Closed assignments, we closed out 22 assignments in June. And again, I would anticipate you may see, slightly smaller numbers during the summer. But that is always sort of subject to maybe how much more in the news also, and how much people pay attention to it. Moving to the financial report, so we're able to close out Q4, and if you take a look at attachment 4, you can see that at the end of the year, we wind up spending 97% of our total budget, and $32,956 is going to be returned to the state budget. As a reminder, the budget was relatively low last year in anticipation of the state's financial difficulties coming on COVID. So there was a fairly substantial effort by staff and the prior executive director to try to reduce all extraneous spending, reducing travel, reducing, essentially the things that they could. And then in addition, we had the departure of a couple of different staff members, which is sort of how we're able to hit the budget that we did. We have since rehired one of those positions and will be likely looking to hire an investigator to sort of staffing back up and sort of expanding into our approved budget for this new fiscal year. So just briefly shifting to miscellaneous projects, also maybe potentially jumping up a little bit ahead. And as we've reported previously, our budget was approved as Act Number 1. In addition, there was a small amount of additional funding, which is designed to match us with the union negotiations approved in Senate Bill 2794. So it's a little bit additional money earmarked for salary increases, which we will likely do on a across the board process, which is basically doing a percentage increase for each employee and trying to make it retroactive to the date of which the appropriation was approved. The total amount of money is approximately about $26,000. So not a huge amount of money, but again, obviously any additional increase in salaries is appreciated, and it's an opportunity to make sure that we are able to increase the salaries, respective of the fact that they haven't been increased over the past several number of years during COVID. And then finally, as you're aware, and again, I'm sort of bleeding a little bit to the next section, I apologize for that. The Commission on Improving Standards of Conduct, we've been considering a number of different bill ideas. I think we're going to sort of use this summer period to try to work out those bills and absolute, the actual concepts and sort of try to get into actual language, both for this commission and the Commission to Improve Standards of Conduct to review, consider, and hopefully be able to introduce at next legislative session. We're also starting to look at a modest administrative rule revision, which hopefully in another couple of meetings we might be able to start talking about a little bit more. There's definitely been a number of discussions we've had in the past around gifts. There's potentially some discussions around financial disclosures and another topic, which is social media and use of state resources on social media accounts, or sort of some of the topics that have come up for potentially re-examining. That's all I have, Chair, on miscellaneous updates.
Any questions or comments by the commissioners? Yes.
Oh, I apologize. I was going to ask Benita to do a discussion of the disclosure statements, and thank you, Benita, for raising your hand on that. Is that okay? Sure.
That's fine. Benita?
Good morning, commissioners. As of today, the financial disclosures, we have about 1,700 total filers for 2022. So good news is all continuing employee filers have filed to date. Yay. Thanks to the hard work of the staff and our ability to kind of follow up with filers on the employee side, we really have done an excellent job on getting folks across the finish line. This year, we're also in election year, so we're also very busy right now in the midst of candidate financial disclosure filers. Because this is a reapportionment year, all seats are open for the state legislative positions. So we're looking at about 266 total filers for candidates, which is about almost 100 more than we normally get in previous election cycles. So far, as of today, we have about 100 or so filers that have completed the process. So we still have about, roughly 130, 150 filers that have still yet to take some kind of action. And staff is busy working to follow up with those individuals and remind those individuals the deadline is this Monday. For candidate financial disclosures, the unique timing of it is the purpose is to really give voters information of who their candidates are and whether they have potential financial interests that may conflict or make them not an appropriate person to represent their district. So it's the timing of it is of critical for voters to act, and so it's a hard deadline that we have 20 days before the primary election. So right now we're in the midst of working with those filers and trying to get as many people to file on time. We're also in the middle of regular financial disclosures for board members, right? So there's a whole crew of new board members that have been confirmed for various state boards across the state. There's roughly over 100 board filers that we're still working with. Um, you know, a large majority of them are first-time filers, very new. So we are working with them to get their financial disclosures filed by August, because they just basically, most of them started in July, their new term. So come August, we'll work with board administrators to see, who hasn't yet filed, and try to provide as much assistance to get as much compliance as possible. So that's just a rough overview of financial disclosures to date.
Thank you, Bonita. Congratulations. Should I assume that our office is, well, if the commission's up to date in regards to financial disclosures, mentioning no names, of course.
Yeah, our office is 100%.
Congratulations. I know how arduous it is to fill that thing out, and I don't know, my wife says, what do you mean I gotta tell everybody how much we have? Well, anyway, yes, Robert?
Chair, if I can add one other thing too. We did also add a new front office staff person, Catherine Spadaro. I hope you'll have a chance to meet with her soon. I will maybe try to invite to make sure she participates in the next meeting. So just in case you happen to get a phone call from her, something you'll know who she is. We're very excited to have her. And as Bonita just mentioned, there's a lot of people to call. There's a lot of different interactions. So having additional help is very beneficial. Hopefully it'll take the load off of the other staff members who've been sort of overworking in order to pick up that extra workload. Thank you, Chair.
What was her name again?
Catherine Spadaro.
You gonna spell her last name?
S-P-A-R-A-D.
I'm sorry?
S-P-A-R-A-D-O.
Okay. I did meet Catherine, and I understand she's got like 25 years of experience, so welcome her on behalf of the commission, welcome her on board, and thank you for joining us. You want to mention about COCO? Is that necessary? COCO, December.
So again, as the commissioners are aware, the COBO conference is scheduled in December. We currently have at least one commissioner attending, potentially two. And then we currently have 3 staff, myself, Jennifer Yamanuha, and Keith Campbell, scheduled to attend.
Well, good.
Because everybody wants to go to Canada in December.
I know, you guys all love the cold. Anyway.
December in Montreal. Montreal's a
Yeah.
lovely city.
Oh, yeah,
Not
I've been there. Anyway, bring back a lot of knowledge for those who are going, and enjoy the cold.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any questions of our executive director? Comments? Okay, thank you for the report. Let's see, legislative session, item number 6. Robert?
So I'll still be brief here on this agenda item. We've talked about it already. As previously mentioned, we did get a small increase in appropriations. And then our mandatory ethics training, which perhaps we should do some celebration, but we've been talking about it so much. The mandatory education bill was signed. So hopefully we'll take the legislative item off our agenda for at least a month or 2 before we have to start talking about bills. The Commission on Improving Standards of Conduct is still actively meeting. I have volunteered to do another session specifically on legislative process. And so there is a lot of concepts, recommendations, and different ideas being discussed. One thing that the Commission may want to be aware of, the last meeting was focused on essentially criminal rules around corruption, where we actually had representatives from the Department of Justice, from the Attorney General's office, and each prosecutor's office was represented. And I think essentially the takeaway was, and I think the City and County of Honolulu is going to take the lead in drafting some proposed state criminal rule changes, perhaps looking to more closely mirror some of the federal laws, with an attempt to try to be able to make sure the state can also better enforce its corruption laws. The State Attorney General's office also noted that they've gotten an increase in budget, so they are staffing up essentially to be able to focus more on white collar crimes, including public corruption. So again, that's just a quick recap. The Commission on Improving Standards of Conduct's meetings are like ours, are posted and are available if anybody wants to take a look at those meetings.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Yes, Bev?
Just one thing for clarification. I know that the House was the one that set this in motion, this whole commission. And I'm wondering if the Senate, does it apply to both houses, number one? And then number two, has the Senate taken a more of participatory role in any of this?
So we did, thank you, Commissioner, Chair, is it okay if I respond?
Sure, please.
We did, I did reach out to the Senate President, and he certainly indicated interest in the Commission Improving Standards of Conduct and a willingness to support it. So I don't think there's any animosity or lack of participation.
Okay.
And then I think with regards to this upcoming session on legislative process, it was my intent actually to invite representatives from both houses to sort of participate in discussion of the legislative process and potential improvements that can be done there. The final, obviously the Commission on Improving Standards of Conduct has no actual power. It will simply be a list of recommendations that hopefully both houses will take a look at. And my general attitude about it has been to try to put together a realistic list of improvements that we think will be beneficial. And if we get 60% of the Manapua, that's certainly better than no Manapua at all. So, we're trying to get in as many improvements that we think, would be beneficial in there as we can.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hart?
Yeah, I don't have the standards before me, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not certain. Robert, maybe you could expand on it. I'm assuming that those who are involved in proposing the standards of conduct are focusing on a number of things, but one in particular that I think should be a primary focus is campaign finance. Campaign financing, particularly during legislative sessions, which we know is full of mischief. So, Robert, is campaign financing issues among the standards or among the topics that are being discussed?
Yes, absolutely. My counterpart, Kristen Izumi Natao, the Campaign Spending Commission, also sits on the Commission to Improve Standards of Conduct, and as well as representatives from the League of Women Voters and Common Cause. So campaign finance topics are actively being discussed. One of the recommendations we made in the interim report included not just stopping fundraisers during the legislative session, but also eliminating the ability to fundraise during the legislative session. We didn't want to fundraisers are currently publicly noticed, so one is going on. We didn't want to eliminate the public notice and then sort of move to people just handing checks in the hallways or something. So the idea is to sort of stop fundraising in the entirety during the legislative session. And my presumption is we will make that recommendation again. In addition, we've had a 2.5-hour presentation on a variety of topics, including beefing up the public financing of elections and a number of other kind of similar concepts. I do have to say, this is a harder area because of some of the constitutional issues about money in politics. And so it's probably the one that everyone identifies as needing work, but also perhaps one of the hardest ones to actually do something about.
It is very, very gratifying to see the coverage, media coverage on this issue. And it seems to be really something that the public is interested in and is certainly well behind. Is there any particular pushback at this early stage with respect to the formulation of these standards of conduct?
No, I think everybody in the Standards Commission, I think, is thoroughly interested in positive improvements. There may be different views of how aggressive to be, but in general, everybody thinks on board. I don't think.
I guess I was referring to any members of the legislature.
We haven't really heard from the legislature per se on any of these issues yet. And I think really where the true test will be is once the report's released and those ideas are given to the legislature. We've tried to have some conversations with some individual legislators, maybe more, sort of just trying to assess the feasibility of different concepts. And again, I think as I originally stated, politics is the art of the possible, trying to find out what you possibly can get through, and not to sound too defeatist about it, trying to maybe not reach for something that's just never going to pass, but then, trying to go as close to that as you can as far as trying to be aggressive. So I think there is definitely going to be as many of those ideas put forward as we can.
Okay, thanks, Robert.
Any other questions from the commissioners? I'd like to thank Robert for representing us on this commission. It's very important. Commission helped us in regards to our job here. Okay. I know one thing, when Robert said 60% of the Manapua, is that a hint?
So Commission,
I picked that up.
so Commission, I will say I went back to look at the July meeting, which was the last time we did election of officers. And one commissioner did say at the next in-person meeting, he would bring some char siu Manapua. So I'll just say that that's a part of the record.
What was that Commissioner Hong? No. No. All right. The chair would take note of that. Okay. But you got to be here to eat it now. You got to remember that. But anyway, I didn't forget. I just knew there was not going to be very many people here. That's. But I'll keep that in mind. Item number 7, Akana v. Hawaii. Robert, anything?
No updates on the Akana versus Hawaii State Ethics Commission matter.
Okay, no update. Are there any questions for Robert in regards to this case or comments? What if not, I think that's the end of our agenda. I'll entertain a motion, unless there's any other matters to be taken up. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Moved by Commissioner McCarthy and seconded by Commissioner Tobias. All in favor, raise your right hand. I see there's no one opposed. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and this session will be adjourned. The time is now, what time is it?
9:43.
9:43. Thank you. We'll take a 5-minute recess before our adjudicatory